Hello and welcome to the garden. There's a certain magic to a cottage garden, isn't there? It's that wonderful, slightly chaotic jumble of colours, textures and scents that feels both timeless and deeply personal. It's a style that embraces nature rather than trying to tame it. A tapestry woven with flowers that spill over paths and climb up walls. Today, I want to share with you my guide to creating that very magic in your own space. We'll be looking at 25 of the very best flowers that are the absolute backbone of any classic cottage garden. What's particularly wonderful about this style of gardening is that it doesn't have to be complicated or demand all of your time. Many of the most iconic cottage garden plants are, in fact, remarkably easy to care for. They are robust, resilient, and often quite happy to look after themselves, self-seeding and returning year after year with minimal fuss. This video is all about celebrating those plants, the ones that give you the most reward for the least amount of work, making a beautiful garden accessible to everyone, regardless of experience. So whether you have a sprawling country garden or a small urban patio, I'll be sharing my top tips and ideas to help you bring that quintessential cottage garden charm to life. We'll talk about where to plant them, how to care for them, and how to combine them to create that effortlessly beautiful look. Grab a cup of tea, and let's get our hands metaphorically dirty as we explore the plants that will fill your garden with joy and colour throughout the seasons. We begin with a true aristocrat of the cottage garden border, the delphinium. You simply cannot mistake those magnificent towering spires of blue, purple, pink or white. They provide essential vertical interest, drawing the eye upwards and adding a sense of grandeur and structure to the informal planting. They act as wonderful exclamation marks amongst the softer, more rounded forms of other flowers. To see them on a still, sunny June morning is one of the great joys of gardening. They may look demanding, but they are surprisingly straightforward if you give them what they need from the start. They adore sunshine and a rich, well-drained soil. The key is to protect them from their two main adversaries, slugs when they are young shoots, and strong winds when they are in full sail. A bit of grit around the base and a sturdy stake put in early will see them through. Once they've finished their first flush of flowering, cut the main spike down. Give them a good liquid feed, and you'll often be rewarded with a second, smaller flush of flowers later in the summer. Next, a plant that is absolutely synonymous with the cottage garden, the foxglove or digitalis. There's something so wonderfully traditional about their bell-shaped speckled flowers hanging from those tall, elegant stems. They bring a certain wild woodland charm to any planting scheme, perfectly bridging the gap between the cultivated and the untamed. They are biennials, which means they form a rosette of leaves in their first year, and then send up their magnificent flower spike in the second. Their greatest gift to the gardener, however, is their ability to self-seed. Once you have foxgloves, you will likely have them forever, as they gently sow themselves into any welcoming nook or cranny. This is the very essence of cottage gardening, letting the plants have a say in the design. They thrive in dappled shade and moist, well-drained soil, often popping up at the back of a border or under the light canopy of a tree. Just let them set seed before you tidy the old stems away, and you'll ensure a continuous display for years to come. For sheer vertical drama, few plants can compete with the hollyhock Alcea rosea. These are the tall sentinels you so often see standing guard against a sun-baked cottage wall or at the very back of a deep border. Their height is their power, creating a magnificent backdrop for everything happening in front of them. The flowers themselves, which can be single or wonderfully ruffled doubles, come in a huge range of colours, from the deepest near-black maroons to soft yellows, pinks and pure whites. Hollyhocks are wonderfully resilient and will thrive in most soils as long as they have plenty of sun. They are often short-lived perennials or biennials, but like the foxglove, they are prolific self-seeders, ensuring their presence is felt year after year. Their one common ailment is rust, which appears as orange spots on the leaves. Good air circulation is the best preventative, so don't plant them too densely. But even with a touch of rust, they will still flower their hearts out, providing that essential old-fashioned charm. Now for a flower of pure, unadulterated opulence, the peony. The moment their buds begin to swell is a time of great anticipation in the garden, honestly, and when they finally unfurl those huge, silken, often fragrant blooms, it is a truly breathtaking spectacle. They really are the epitome of romantic blousy beauty, aren't they? Their flowering season may be relatively brief, but the show they put on is so magnificent that it's worth the wait all year. The flowers are simply sublime for cutting and bringing indoors too. The key to success with peonies is simple: plant them correctly, and then, well, just leave them alone. They are incredibly long-lived and really resent being disturbed. Find a sunny spot in well-drained, fertile soil, and be very careful not to plant the crown too deeply. No more than an inch or two below the surface is perfect. Once they are established, they are one of the lowest maintenance plants you can grow, requiring almost no care at all, yet rewarding you with increasing splendor each and every spring. Is it even a summer's day in the garden without the hum of bees and the glorious scent of lavender? I think not. This Mediterranean native is a cornerstone of the cottage garden, not just for its iconic purple flowers, but for its wonderfully aromatic grey-green foliage. It provides structure, colour and fragrance all year round, which is just lovely. It's perfect for lining a pathway where you can brush past it and release that calming scent, or for planting in a sunny, dry spot where other plants might struggle. Lavender is the ultimate easy care plant, provided you honour its origins. It demands sun and lots of it. It also needs sharp, free-draining soil. It absolutely detests having wet feet, especially in winter. It is incredibly drought-tolerant once established, making it a superb choice for a low-water garden or for growing in pots. The only essential job is to give it a good trim after it has flowered, cutting back into the leafy growth, but not right back to the old, bare wood. This will keep it compact, bushy, and full of flower for the following year. A cottage garden without a rose is like a sentence without a verb. It's simply missing its heart. But I'm not talking about the highly strung, demanding modern roses. For that classic cottage charm, you want to look for the old-fashioned shrub roses, the climbers and the ramblers. Varieties like Gertrude Jekyll or Madame Isaac Pereire offer not just beautiful multi-petaled flowers, but also, crucially, the most intoxicating fragrances that will fill your entire garden on a warm evening. The beauty of these older varieties is often their vigor and disease resistance. They're tougher than they look, honestly. Give them a sunny spot with rich, well-tended soil. They are hungry plants, so a good mulch with well-rotted manure in spring is essential. Whether you're training a climber up a wall, letting a rambler scramble through a tree, or giving a shrub rose pride of place in a border, they provide the romance and structure that is so central to this style of gardening. A little deadheading will encourage more flowers, but mostly they just want to be admired. Sweet pea, or Lathyrus odoratus, offers honestly one of the most divine scents in the entire plant kingdom. Growing them is such a pure delight, and really it's a quintessential summer ritual for so many of us. These are annual climbers, which means you sow them each year, and in return, they reward you with an astonishing profusion of flowers from early summer right through to the first frosts, so long as you remember just one simple rule. They're perfect for scrambling up a wigwam of hazel sticks, a trellis against a fence, or even netting amongst runner beans in the vegetable patch. And here's that crucial rule: pick them, and then pick some more. The more flowers you cut for the house, the more the plant will produce. If you let them set seed, the plant thinks its job is done and will stop flowering, so you really do have to be ruthless with your picking. Sow them in late winter or early spring in deep pots to give those long roots a good start, and then plant them out into a sunny spot with rich, moisture-retentive soil. They truly are the gift that keeps on giving all summer long. Aquilegia, which you might know as columbine or granny's bonnet, is honestly a plant that perfectly embodies the spirit of the self-sufficient cottage garden. It's a wonderfully promiscuous plant, cross-pollinating freely and self-seeding with, well, gentle abandon. This means you're never quite sure what colours or forms will pop up next year, and that's honestly all part of the fun. Their spurred, bonnet-like flowers are so intricate and delicate, dancing on wiry stems above that lovely, ferny, attractive foliage. They're incredibly adaptable, happy in sun or partial shade, and tolerant of a wide range of soil types, although to be fair, they do best in soil that doesn't dry out completely. These beauties are a spring and early summer flower, nicely bridging the gap between the last of the tulips and the first of the roses. They require almost no attention at all. Just let them flower, and then if you want more, allow the seed heads to ripen and scatter their contents. They're honestly the perfect plant for filling gaps and adding a touch of unpredictable, airy charm to your garden. For scent at a lower level, you simply cannot beat dianthus, which most folks know as pinks. These charming little perennials form neat cushions of grassy, often blue-grey foliage, which is honestly quite attractive even on its own. But it's in early summer that they truly shine, absolutely covering themselves in a profusion of fringed, clove-scented flowers. They're the perfect plants for the front of a border, for edging a path, or for tucking into the crevices of a dry stone wall or rock garden. Their needs are, well, really quite simple. Like lavender, they crave sunshine and demand sharp drainage. They hail from rocky, alkaline places, so they won't thank you for rich, heavy or acidic soil. A gritty, lean soil is where they're happiest. The only real maintenance they require is a quick shearing over with scissors or shears after their main flush of flowers has faded. This tidies them up, prevents them from getting leggy, and will often encourage a second, lighter flush of blooms later in the season. The bellflowers, or campanula, are a wonderfully diverse group of plants, but the ones most at home in a cottage garden are the classic clump-forming perennials like Campanula persicifolia or Campanula lactiflora. They produce masses of bell-shaped flowers, usually in shades of blue, violet or white, for a very long period throughout the summer. They are brilliant for adding that cool blue tone that works so well with the pinks of roses and the yellows of daisies. Most campanulas are incredibly easygoing. They are generally happy in full sun or light shade and will thrive in any reasonably good garden soil that doesn't get waterlogged. They are robust, reliable, and will slowly spread to form generous clumps without ever becoming invasive thugs. Taller varieties may need a little bit of support to stop them flopping over in wind or rain, but lower growing types need no help at all. A little deadheading will prolong the flowering season, ensuring you have colour for weeks on end. Summer phlox, Phlox paniculata, brings clouds of vibrant colour and a sweet, honey-like fragrance to the midsummer and late summer garden. They form sturdy clumps and produce large, domed heads of flowers in an incredible array of colours, from pure white and soft pinks to vibrant magenta, lavender, and even orange. They are fantastic for the middle of the border, providing a block of solid colour and attracting butterflies in droves. They are a real workhorse of the late season. To get the best from your phlox, plant them in a sunny spot in rich, moist soil. They do not like to dry out, so a good thick mulch in spring will help to conserve moisture around their roots. Their main nemesis can be powdery mildew, a white dusty coating on the leaves. The best way to prevent this is to give them good air circulation by not crowding them too closely with other plants. Choosing modern, mildew-resistant varieties will also make your life much easier, ensuring a healthy and floriferous display. Lupines are another plant that provides strong vertical accents, much like delphiniums, but with a character all of their own. Their densely packed spires of pea-like flowers are incredibly bold and dramatic, coming in a vast spectrum of single and bicoloured shades. They create a real spectacle in the late spring and early summer garden, standing like colourful candles in the border. The palmate foliage is also very handsome, catching dewdrops and raindrops like little cups. Beyond their beauty, lupines have a secret superpower. They are legumes, which means they can take nitrogen from the air and fix it in the soil via nodules on their roots. This actually improves the fertility of the soil for the plants around them. They prefer full sun and well-drained soil, and they particularly dislike chalky, alkaline conditions. They can be prone to lupin aphids, but a quick spray of soapy water usually sorts them out. They are a truly rewarding plant to grow, both for their looks and their benefits to the garden ecosystem. Sometimes what a garden really needs is just a dose of simple, unadulterated cheerfulness. And honestly, that is exactly what the Shasta Daisy Leucanthemum X Superbum provides. With their classic white petals arranged around a bright yellow center, they are the very epitome of a summer's day. They're incredibly reliable and floriferous, producing what seems like an endless supply of flowers from early summer onwards. These daisies are robust, sturdy, and absolutely brilliant for cutting, so you can bring that sunny disposition indoors. This is a plant that asks for very little, really. Just give it a spot in full sun and any average well-drained soil, and it'll be perfectly happy. It's not fussy at all. Deadheading the spent flowers is the key to keeping the show going. The more you remove, the more new buds will form. Every few years, the clumps can become a bit congested and woody in the center. When this happens, simply lift the plant in spring, divide it with a spade, and replant the vigorous outer sections. It's such an easy way to get more plants for free. If you have a hot, dry, sunny spot where other plants have just failed to thrive, then Coreopsis, or tickseed, is definitely the plant for you. These are members of the daisy family, and they bring a splash of pure, bright yellow or gold to the garden, flowering for an incredibly long time right throughout the summer. They're tough, resilient, and utterly dependable. Their flowers, held on wiry stems, dance in the breeze and bring a wonderful sense of lightness and movement to any planting scheme. Their care honestly couldn't be simpler. They absolutely thrive on neglect. Full sun is non-negotiable, and they much prefer poor, sandy, or just average soil. If you plant them in soil that's too rich or fertile, they tend to produce lots of floppy growth at the expense of flowers. They are extremely drought-tolerant once they've settled in. A quick shear back in midsummer, after the first main flush of flowers, will tidy the plant up and encourage a whole new wave of blooms that will often carry on right into the autumn. When I say geranium, I'm not talking about the tender pelargoniums you see in pots, but the hardy cranesbills. These are the true workhorses of the cottage garden. They are just brilliant ground-covering plants, forming mounds of attractive, often divided foliage that is excellent at suppressing weeds. They then cover themselves in simple, charming flowers for weeks on end. There's a hardy geranium for almost every situation, from sun to shade, and in colours from white and pink to magenta and intense blue. Varieties like Roseanne are famous for flowering non-stop from June until the first frosts, weaving their way through other plants and filling any gaps. Most hardy geraniums are incredibly low maintenance. They'll grow in almost any soil, and once established, they are tough and resilient. The main job is the Chelsea chop. After their first flush of flowers, you can cut the whole plant back to the ground. It looks a bit drastic, but within weeks it will produce a fresh mound of new leaves, and often a second flush of flowers later in the season. Echinacea, also known as the coneflower, brings a touch of the American prairie right into the cottage garden. Their distinctive flowers, kind of like shuttlecocks with those reflexed petals, and a big prominent central cone, are just so instantly recognizable. While the classic color is that lovely purple pink, you can now find stunning varieties in shades of white, yellow, orange, and even fiery red. They're absolutely magnificent in the late summer and autumn garden, providing vibrant color just when other plants are starting to fade away, and honestly, they're a real magnet for bees and butterflies. Coneflowers do need a spot in full sun to really perform, and good drainage is essential, since they absolutely hate sitting in wet soil over winter. Being prairie plants, they're naturally drought-tolerant once they're established. Here's a tip: leave the seed heads on over winter. Not only do they look incredibly beautiful when they're dusted with frost, but they also provide a vital food source for birds, like goldfinches. So, they add structure and interest to the garden long after the colour has faded from their petals. I know we've already met the foxglove, but honestly, it's just so important to the cottage garden that I think it really deserves a second mention, especially when you consider its other forms. While the common foxglove, Digitalis purpurea, is a biennial, there are also some truly wonderful perennial varieties out there. Take Digitalis' Sutton's apricot, for example, with those soft, peachy apricot flowers, or the strawberry foxglove, Digitalis ex mertenensis, which has these gorgeous crushed strawberry-coloured bells. These can be much more reliably perennial in the border. Exploring these different varieties lets you play with colour and form, all while keeping that classic elegant spire shape that foxgloves are known for. The care is much the same. They appreciate dappled shade and soil that doesn't dry out completely. By planting a mix of the biennial common foxglove and some of these perennial cousins, you can ensure you'll have that vertical interest and woodland charm in your garden every single year, without fail. It's really about building layers of reliability into your planting. There is a fleeting, almost poignant beauty to the poppy that I find utterly captivating. Whether it's the common field poppy, Papaver rheas, or those big blousy opium poppies, Papaver somniferum with their tissue paper petals, they bring such vibrant, silky splashes of colour to the garden in early summer. They're the ultimate self-seeder, really. You just scatter the seed on bare soil in autumn or early spring, and they'll pop up wherever they please, filling in gaps with their transient jewel-like flowers. Their ephemeral nature is part of their charm. A flower might only last a day or two, but the plant will keep producing them in succession. The key thing is not to try and transplant them, as they have a long taproot and really despise being moved. So sow them exactly where you'd like them to grow. After the petals fall, the pepper pot seed heads are just as beautiful and are wonderful for drying for winter decorations. Honestly, they are the very embodiment of the wild, untamed beauty that a cottage garden celebrates. For a touch of architectural drama and a completely different shape, you must include alliums. These are ornamental onions, and they send up strong, leafless stems topped with perfect globes of tightly packed star-shaped flowers. They come in shades of purple, lilac and white, and they punctuate the late spring and early summer border like giant floral lollipops. They look fantastic rising up through lower-growing plants like geraniums or Alchemilla mollies, whose foliage will hide the allium leaves, which honestly tend to die back untidily as the flowers emerge. Alliums are bulbs planted in the autumn. Like most bulbs, they need a sunny spot and well-drained soil to prevent them from rotting. Once planted, they are incredibly low maintenance, returning year after year. Varieties like Purple Sensation are a classic, but for real drama, try the enormous Globe Master. After the colour fades, the spherical seed heads remain, holding their structure for months and looking wonderful well into winter, much like the Echinacea. Verbena bonariensis is a plant that, well, really defies the usual rules of garden design. It's tall, but it's also transparent. It has tall, wiry, see-through stems topped with small clusters of purple flowers. This unique structure means you can plant it anywhere, at the front, middle, or back of the border, and it will never block the view of the plants behind it. Instead, it creates a subtle, airy purple haze that weaves everything together. It's a brilliant plant for adding height without adding bulk. It's often described as a short-lived perennial, but it self-seeds so reliably that you will always have it. It loves full sun and is not at all fussy about soil. It flowers for an incredibly long period, from midsummer right through to the first hard frosts, and is adored by butterflies. There is no need to stake it. Its wiry stems are surprisingly strong. Just let it do its thing, and it will add a layer of graceful, ethereal movement to your garden. Alchemilla mollis, or lady's mantle, is perhaps the most useful foliage plant in the cottage garden. It forms lovely, neat mounds of soft, scalloped, velvety green leaves. Its party trick is the way it catches and holds water droplets, which sit on the leaves like little jewels or mercury beads after rain or in the morning dew. It's a truly magical sight. In early summer, it sends up frothy sprays of zesty lime green flowers, which are the perfect foil for blues, purples, and pinks. This is an incredibly easy plant to grow. It will thrive in sun or partial shade and is happy in most soils, though it does best with a reasonable amount of moisture. It's a fantastic plant for edging paths and borders, softening hard lines with its gentle spilling habit. It does self-seed with enthusiasm, so if you don't want hundreds of seedlings, it's best to shear off the flower heads once they start to fade. This will also encourage a fresh flush of its beautiful foliage. For non-stop flower power from midsummer until autumn, honestly, it's hard to beat Cosmos. These are half-hardy annuals that you grow from seed each year, and, let me tell you, they are worth every bit of effort. Cosmos produce masses of simple, daisy-like flowers in shades of pink, white and magenta, all held aloft on tall stems with that beautiful, feathery, fern-like foliage. They really do bring a wonderful sense of lightness, movement and grace to the garden, dancing in even the slightest breeze. You can sow them indoors in spring, or just pop the seeds straight into the ground after the last frost. They do need a sunny spot though. Now, the secret to success with Cosmos is not to be too kind to them. Like Coreopsis, if you give them very rich soil or too much feed, you'll end up with a bit of a jungle. Lots of leafy growth, but not many flowers. They actually perform best in average or even quite poor soil. And just like sweet peas, they're a cut-and-come-again flower. The more you pick for the house, the more blooms the plant will produce. Nigella damascena, or Love in a Mist, is another charming, hardy annual that is just perfect for the cottage garden. It gets its common name from the beautiful jewel-like flowers, usually in shades of blue, pink, or white, which sort of peer out from a fine, feathery thicket of foliage that looks like a mist. It's incredibly easy to grow. You just sprinkle the seeds on the ground where you want them to flower in autumn or spring, and honestly, they'll just take care of themselves. But, you know, the flowers are only half the story. Once the petals fall, Nigella produces the most wonderful, inflated and striped seed pods. These are incredibly ornamental in their own right, adding texture and interest to the border long after the colour is gone. They're fantastic for cutting and using in dried flower arrangements too. Nigella self-seeds readily, so once you have it, you'll find it popping up in delightful and unexpected places year after year, adding to that informal, self-sustaining tapestry. Not all of the cottage garden needs to be in blazing sun. For those shadier, more damp corners, Dicentra spectabilis, the bleeding heart, is an absolute treasure. It's one of the most elegant spring perennials, with beautiful arching stems, from which dangle perfect, heart-shaped pink and white flowers. It brings a touch of grace and romance to the garden early in the season, appearing alongside ferns and hostas. The foliage is ferny and attractive in its own right. Bleeding hearts thrive in partial or full shade in rich, moist but well-drained soil. They are woodland plants at heart, so they appreciate a good mulch of leaf mold. They emerge early in spring, put on their spectacular show, and then, this is the important part, they die back and become dormant by midsummer. This is perfectly normal. You need to plant them amongst other plants like hostas or ferns that will grow and fill the gap they leave behind for the rest of the season. We end with one of the smallest, but honestly, most charming of all cottage garden flowers, the forget-me-not Myosotis sylvatica. In spring, they create a veritable river of tiny sky-blue flowers that weaves its way through the border. They are the perfect partner for tulips and wallflowers, providing a carpet of colour at their feet that just makes the taller flowers seem to float above them. They are the ultimate team player, complementing everything around them. Forget-me-nots are biennials that self-seed with abandon. You really don't need to do anything at all. Just let them flower their hearts out in spring. And then once they start to look tatty and have set their seed, just pull them up and chuck them on the compost heap. thousands of tiny seeds will have scattered, guaranteeing a beautiful blue haze for the following spring. They thrive in sun or partial shade and moist soil, and are the very definition of easy, joyful cottage garden planting. And there we have it, 25 wonderful plants that form the soul of a cottage garden. I do hope this has given you the confidence to try some of them. As you've seen, creating that classic romantic look doesn't rely on complicated techniques or endless hours of toil. It's about choosing the right plants, plants that are generous, resilient, and often more than happy to make themselves at home and fill your garden with their charm, year after year. It's a partnership, a gentle collaboration between you and nature. The real beauty of this style is its accessibility. Many of these flowers, from the self-seeding poppies and forget-me-nots to the drought-tolerant lavender and coreopsis, are wonderfully easy to care for. This makes gardening a joy, not a chore, and opens up the possibility of having a beautiful, flower-filled space to everyone. So I encourage you to start small. Pick a few favorites from this list, give them a home in your garden, and just see what happens. You might be surprised by the magic that unfolds. A garden is a very personal thing, a constantly evolving story. The plants we've talked about today are just the beginning of your own cottage garden tale. I would absolutely love to hear which plants are the stars of your garden. What are your favorite cottage garden flowers? Are there any indispensable plants that I've missed from my list? Please do share your thoughts and favorites in the comments below. It's always a pleasure to learn from you all. Until next time, happy gardening.